Students, life process. Among the four life process, there is nutrition, respiration, transportation, and excretion. Already you have studied about nutrition in plants and nutrition in human beings. Now we have to study about respiration. Respiration, it is a physiological process. It is an energy releasing process during which oxidation of food is known to take place. That is, food gets broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy in the presence of oxygen. Respiration is a process in which the cells of an organism obtain energy by combining oxygen and glucose, and this particular respiration involves breathing. Students, I repeat, respiration is an energy releasing process during which oxidation of food is known to take place. That is, food gets broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy in the presence of oxygen. In respiration, there are two types of respiration. One is aerobic respiration, another one anaerobic respiration. Hey students, what are the two types of respiration? Aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration, it is a kind of respiration that takes place only in the presence of oxygen. Here, the glucose gets broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy only in the presence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration, it is a kind of respiration that takes place in the absence of oxygen. Hey students, anaerobic respiration, it is the process of producing energy in the absence or lack of oxygen. Students, which are the two types of respiration? One is aerobic respiration, another one is anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration, it is a kind of respiration that takes place only in the presence of oxygen. It is seen in plants, animals, and microorganisms. Anaerobic respiration, it is a kind of respiration which is known to take place in some microorganisms such as bacteria and yeast. Now, let's know about respiration in detail. You know that whatever this particular food reaches the cell by means of blood, it will enter into the cell by a process called assimilation. Yes, students, that particular glucose which will enter into the cell in cytoplasm, this particular glucose, a 6 carbon molecule, will get broken down into a 3 carbon molecule called pyruvate. This process is called glycolysis. The breakdown of glucose, a 6 carbon molecule, into a 3 carbon molecule in cytoplasm, it is called pyruvate. It has a molecular formula C3H4O3. The fate of this particular pyruvate, it depends upon presence or absence of oxygen. In the absence of oxygen, pyruvate, a 3 carbon molecule, gets broken down into ethanol, which is a 2 carbon molecule having a molecular formula C2H5OH, along with carbon dioxide and energy. This process is known to take place in yeast. Some of the microorganisms such as yeast, which is a unicellular fungus. Pyruvate, it is a 3 carbon molecule. In the absence of oxygen, it gets broken down into ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. And the same pyruvate, in the absence of oxygen in our muscular cells, it gets broken down into lactic acid and energy. Hey students, pyruvate, it is a 3 carbon molecule. This particular pyruvate, in the absence of oxygen, it gets broken down into ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy in some unicellular fungus such as yeast. And the same pyruvate, in the absence of oxygen in our muscular cells, it gets broken down into lactic acid and energy. Even this lactic acid, it is a 3 carbon molecule having a molecular formula C3H6O3. When this lactic acid gets collected in our muscle cells, it results in painful muscular cramps. Whenever a person does heavy muscular work, at that time the muscles demand the muscles which are made up of muscular cells or muscle cells, they want more oxygen. In case if sufficient oxygen is not made available for the muscular cells, at that time the pyruvate gets broken down into lactic acid and energy. This particular lactic acid, when it gets collected in the muscles, it results in painful muscular cramps. Students, in the presence of sufficient oxygen, the same pyruvate, a 3 carbon molecule, it gets broken down into water and carbon dioxide and energy. Every day in our body, this particular glucose, a 6 carbon molecule in cytoplasm, gets broken down into pyruvate and energy. That particular pyruvate, that particular pyruvate, which is a 3 carbon molecule, in the presence of sufficient oxygen, gets broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Here, students, what are the two important steps in this particular respiration? One is glycolysis and Krebs cycle. Glycolysis, it is a process by which glucose, a 6 carbon molecule, gets broken down into 3 carbon molecule called pyruvate and energy in cytoplasm. Whereas Krebs cycle, it is a process by which this particular pyruvate, which is a 3 carbon molecule, gets broken down into water, carbon dioxide, and energy in the presence of sufficient oxygen. In the lack of oxygen, it gets broken down into lactic acid and energy in muscular cells, and in organisms such as yeast. In the absence of oxygen, that particular pyruvate gets broken down into ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. Hey students, glucose, a 6 carbon molecule, that is C6H12O6, in cytoplasm gets broken down into pyruvate and energy, and in the presence of oxygen, this pyruvate, a 3 carbon molecule, gets broken down into water, carbon dioxide, and energy. The energy released during cellular respiration is used to synthesize molecule called ATP. Means whatever the energy that will be released during oxidation of food in this particular mitochondria of the cell, at that time all that particular energy will be used during cellular respiration to synthesize one of the molecule called ATP. ATP is nothing but adenosine triphosphate. This ATP is called as energy currency of the cell, and this ATP is known to provide sufficient energy required for our body. Whenever our body demands energy to do a particular work, the energy will be utilized by our body in the form of ATP. Hey students, what is meant by ATP? It is called energy currency of life, and it is the form in which energy will be stored in our body. And this ATP has a molecular formula of C10H16H5O13P3. Hey students, what is the molecular formula of adenosine triphosphate? It is C10H16H5O13P3. This particular ATP, it is the energy currency of life. And whenever our body requires energy, that ATP gets broken down into ADP, and energy will be released in the form of phosphate bond. ADP is nothing but adenosine diphosphate. Further, if our body demands energy, that ADP will get further broken down into AMP, adenosine monophosphate. Whatever the energy that is released during cellular respiration, it will be used by our bodies to synthesize a molecule called ATP. Remember this, students. Students, human respiratory system, it is an organ system which plays a very important role to take in air rich in oxygen and to give out air rich in carbon dioxide. Oxygen rich air is taken into the body through the nose. The air is then being subjected to filtration by tiny little hairs which are present along the inner wall of nasal cavity. From nose, this particular air passes through the throat to the lungs. Our human respiratory system is being composed of nose, nasal cavities, pharynx, also called throat, larynx, also called voice box, trachea, also called windpipe. This particular trachea, it splits into two parts. One is trachea opens into bronchus. The bronchi splits into two parts. One is right bronchus opening into right lung, and left bronchus opening into left lung. That bronchus opens into bronchioles. Bronchioles open into alveoli, also called as air sacs. Hey students, whatever the air that we are going to take in, that particular air, it will enter through the nose. You know that nose contain a pair of openings called nostrils. From this particular nostrils, the air will enter into the nasal cavity. From nasal cavity, the air further enters into pharynx. From pharynx, the air passes into larynx, and from larynx, the air enters into trachea. From trachea, the air passes into bronchi. That particular bronchi, from right bronchus, the air enters into right lung. From left bronchus, the air is known to enter into left lung. Further, from bronchus enters into bronchioles. From bronchioles, the air will enter into alveoli. Alveoli are also called as air sacs. They play a very important role in storing the air rich in oxygen. Now, in lungs, the air passage divides into smaller and smaller tubes and finally reach in alveoli. Yes, students, in lungs, the air passage divides into smaller and smaller tubes. That is, bronchus divides into smaller and smaller tubes called bronchioles, and finally, the air is known to enter into alveoli. Alveoli are also called as air sacs. They are some balloon-like structures which provide a surface area for exchange of gases. This particular alveoli has a rich supply of blood vessels, and Exchange of gases is known to take place between alveoli and blood by a simple process called diffusion. Hey students, what are alveoli? Alveoli are some balloon-like structures which provide a surface area for exchange of gases. The walls of the alveoli has a rich supply of blood vessels, and as these alveoli are in contact with the blood vessels, exchange of gases, that is oxygen and carbon dioxide, between blood and alveoli, it takes place by a simple process called diffusion. Oxygen, whatever the oxygen that has entered into alveoli, it will dissolve in hemoglobin component of the blood. You know that hemoglobin, it is an iron containing pigment present in the blood which imparts red color to the blood. This hemoglobin, it plays a very important role in carrying that particular oxygen to each and every cell of the human body in the form of oxyhemoglobin. Yes, students, hemoglobin, it is an iron containing pigment which has more affinity towards oxygen, that is it readily combines with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. This particular oxygen in the form of oxyhemoglobin, it reaches each and every cell of our body, and whatever the carbon dioxide that is given out by the cells during cellular respiration, that carbon dioxide once again it will combine with hemoglobin to form carb amino hemoglobin, and this carb amino hemoglobin, when it reaches this particular lungs, it is going to bring back the carbon dioxide from each and every cell of our body to the lungs. Yes, students, carbon dioxide is known to reach this particular lungs in the form of carb amino hemoglobin. Hemoglobin from the lungs, it reaches each and every cell of our body in the form of oxyhemoglobin. Carbon dioxide given out by the cells during cellular respiration is known to reach back the lungs in the form of carb amino hemoglobin. Students, remember hemoglobin, the word hemoglobin has been taken from two words. Hem means iron, globin means pigment. It is an iron containing pigment present in RBC of the blood. And if at all your blood is red in color, it is mainly because of hemoglobin pigment. Now, let's move on to respiration in plants. You know that respiration is a physiological process by which living organisms take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. Respiration is not only confined to animals, respiration do occurs in plants, and throughout this particular 24 hours. All the 24 hours in a plant, gaseous exchange is known to take place, and this particular gaseous exchange, it can take place through stomata present in the leaves, or even it can take place through lenticel present in the stem, and even it can happen through the surface of the roots. Hence, what are the three modes of respiration? The three modes of respiration is stomatal respiration, lenticular respiration, and the respiration which takes place through the surface of the roots. Stomata are the minute openings present in the margin of the cells. This particular stomata is made up of two bean-shaped cells called guard cells. And between these two guard cells, there is a minute opening called stoma. Every guard cell is covered by a protective covering called cell wall. Enclosed within the cell wall, there is a fluid called cytoplasm. In cytoplasm, there is a prominent nucleus, and there are some structures called chloroplasts rich in chlorophyll pigment are also present. Hence, we can say that guard cells also play a very important role in helping the plant to undergo the process of photosynthesis. Lenticels, these are some minute openings which are present in the bark of the tree. Yes, students, what are lenticels? Lenticels are some minute openings present in the old bark of the tree, and even lenticels also play a very important role in helping the plants to take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. And when we move on to the surface of the roots, even this particular surface of the roots have the potential to take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. During respiration, the plants absorb oxygen and use that particular oxygen with glucose to create carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Hey students, you know that respiration is an energy releasing process during which oxidation of food is going to take place. That is, food in the form of glucose gets broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy in the presence of oxygen. Students, respiration is a physiological process by which the plants take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. This particular respiration is known to take place in the plant through stomata, lenticel present in the bark of the tree, and even through the surface of the roots. During respiration, the plants absorb oxygen and use that particular oxygen to break down this particular glucose, a 6-carbon molecule, into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Yes, students, what happens during respiration? Glucose, a 6 carbon molecule, in the presence of oxygen, gets broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. This particular energy will be stored in the form of ATP, which is nothing but adenosine triphosphate. Students, respiration is a catabolic process because whatever the food that is there in the plant, stored food, it is being broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. You know that in living organisms there are two types of metabolic activities. One is anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism is nothing but constructive activity, whereas catabolism on the other hand, it is a destructive activity. You will be noticing this particular anabolism, that is the constructive activity, takes place in the plant during photosynthesis, wherein carbon dioxide chemically combine with water to form glucose, water, and oxygen. And during this particular respiration, the stored food in the plant body is being broken down into energy, and this particular energy is very important for the plants for their proper growth and development.